The Weddings by Annabelle podcast. This is the whys, not just the whats, behind weddings. Based in the UK's Cumbria and the Lake District, me and others invite you to join a conversation about the highs and lows, the delights and the concerns faced by anyone planning a wedding. Welcome to the Weddings by Annabelle podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. Nick, please can you introduce yourself and what on earth you do?
Hey, good to see you. After all
Long time.
I think the last time I saw you was in the summer months, I think. But
I remember the day when it was warm. Oh,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
long summer. Anyway,
Yeah.
So I'm Nick Merchant. I run Merchant Music, which is a music and wedding entertainment business. I've been going, in various guises
Ages.
for 10 years now. 10 years
Dun,
I've
dun,
been doing this.
dun.
So, yeah, a long
Yeah.
time. I think as long as we've known it, it's
Yeah, thereabouts.
12
Yeah.
years maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Long time. And you're a Penrithian at heart. That's how
Yeah.
we know each
Yeah.
other.
I moved to Lancashire. I met my now wife in Ibiza, and
Oh,
through the
nice.
short straw, I moved to Lancashire. So
There you
switched careers.
go.
Yeah.
But so even though you're not living in Cumbria, I still class you as one of my. You're on my list as a local. I can't
Yeah,
help
I
it.
still feel like a local. I love coming home. I love
Good.
Penrith is still still my
Yeah.
home. So
Yay. So
yeah.
the reason why I've asked you to join me in a good old chat is because we've talked to bands and I've had a discussion about what that looks like and what's the difference between having a band and a DJ and all of that. I think there's a lot of unknown information about getting an agency involved for wedding entertainment. For me, it's such a valuable service. So, it's different from my point of view because if I'm helping people, to be able to point them in one direction and go, just talk to this person, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
nice and
So
easy.
a managed service. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I still think there's a lot of people who are very dubious about it, or just curious, and they don't really know where to start. So I think it's good to delve into that and go, right, what on earth is this service? What is the pros and cons of it? What does it look like? What information do people need to know to be able to utilize this kind of service for their wedding? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I guess agents, have in some respects got a bit of a bad rep. But I think a lot of the kind of the newer, more modern agents, let's say, people who like myself who've gone and worked in this industry, in performance-based industry, and then set up an agency. They have an understanding of both camps.
Yeah.
So
That's the
in terms of,
difference.
yeah, I think so. I think, looking after the people that are, delivering the service as well from the agency perspective, so getting things like timings together and making sure everything's well communicated.
Yeah. It's not just that's booked, right? They'll be there
Yeah,
then. See
fire
you
and forget,
later.
not at all, not at all.
Yeah.
And they can add a lot of value, agents, I mean, God forbid anything should ever go wrong and an artist is ill or there's some sort of issue. You've got someone that you can rely on, to kind of go back
Yeah.
and say, well,
Yeah.
can you sort out an alternative thing, and people
Yeah.
forget that is a huge asset,
Yeah. Because I think sometimes, so on the little list that I wrote down, there was only one con, and it's because it's been mentioned to me by a client, and it was just that they don't feel like that they're engaged with the band directly. But I suppose it depends which agency, isn't it? Because most of the time when I've got you involved, you're there and or also playing in the band. So there
Yeah,
is a connection to it. I suppose
yeah,
it depends if that's important to you, that you are engaging with them directly when you're through the process, then you find an agency where that is part of it. It's not just an outsourced agency that isn't, is just relaying information maybe. Just if
yeah,
that was important to you, there is an option for that, isn't there?
absolutely. I mean, even if I'm not engaged in the performance aspect of a a job, let's call it, um, you know, I always kind of offer that to clients. I say, I'm happy to put you in direct contact with the artist.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a lot of most for the most part, a lot of artists are kind of busy doing rehearsals or performance or doing other things with their lives. So, it's good to be able to communicate with someone, i.e., me, the agent, who can, you know, can advise on things like, when do you want the first band set or the DJ
Yeah.
set
Yeah.
events, and impart little details. So, you know, invariably, you're only going to get married once, if you're
Let's hope
lucky.
so.
Not like my mum who got married 3 times. So, you want to get it right. So, relying on industry professionals who kind of can sort of
Yeah.
fill in the gaps. If you think about it as use a sort of project management analogy as a Gantt chart, you want people, who know what they're doing, who've sort of
Yeah.
done it for years and seen the pitfalls.
Yeah. They're not just ticking a few boxes on a booking form and
Yeah,
relaying that to a band and away you go. I
yeah,
mean, some. I mean, some couples that's all they need. Some don't necessarily need to have that level of involvement with the band themselves, but it's good to know that there's options out there to do either way, depending on what you're after.
yeah. I mean, a big part of my job. I mean, I got married in 2016, so I've done it. I know what it's like.
Been there, done that.
Um, but it's nice to impart, little details that really make the event tick that you probably wouldn't think about because
Yeah,
you've not done it before. So we spoke earlier about timings of things. So things like the first dance, a lot of
yeah,
couples, they're quite anxious about getting that bit out of the way, and I always say, well, try and leave it,
yeah.
till maybe 8 o'clock when people have kind of finished the wedding breakfast, they've had time to sort of
Let the
chat.
food go down.
Yeah, yeah. And don't forget those people that they're sat with, might not be people that they've ever met before, so they might want to go off and chat to family.
Yeah,
It's good to allow people time to kind of go and
yeah,
do that, have another
yeah.
drink,
Got
you know.
timings is a whole different thing, isn't it? I think people get really bamboozled by all of that for the entirety of the wedding because if you've been to weddings but not paid attention or you've never even been to that many weddings, that's a whole different ball game. Trying to
Yeah.
actually piece all of that together.
Yeah. I mean, little things like first dance. It's good to, if you are having a cake cutting, for example,
Yeah.
to do that just prior to the first dance,
I say that all the
Yeah.
time. It's
Yeah.
much better.
A lot of couples are like, oh, we want to get the first dance out of the way at 7 o'clock. And I'm like, no, 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 don't do
No,
that.
because the
I'm
problem
trying.
is, and I've talked about this a lot, is a band wants a full dance floor.
Yeah.
So they want to get going with that first dance, because first dance is the nod to everybody that it's okay to go on the dance floor. And
Yeah.
you want to hit the ground running, not
Absolutely.
like do a first dance, but everybody's still a bit tired, not quite right. And,
Aged.
and
Yeah.
then they all go on the dance floor and then it all disappear off again. You don't
Yeah.
want that.
You
That's,
don't want stop start. You want the focus to be on the couple. So
yeah,
cake cutting,
yeah,
whoever's comparing the event, be it the DJ
yeah,
or the band leader, take them to the first dance and then straight off with the first band set or DJ set.
yeah.
I
Nice and
think
easy.
that's,
Full dance
I think,
floor, full energy.
yeah, absolutely.
It's the best
I mean,
feeling.
there are even seasonal considerations. So if you're in the height of
Yeah,
summer, I oftentimes think it's better to kind of put the first big set of music later on, just because people
yeah,
want to be out and enjoy the sun because we don't get much of it. So
yeah. In Cumbria, it's like
yeah,
I think all of the planning is like, well, dependent on the weather.
yeah.
Like any
I
part
think
of it,
I think the
dependent on the
mantra in
weather.
Cumbria needs to be, just plan for the worst case scenario that it's
Yeah,
raining.
it's going
You'll
to
be
rain.
happy. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you'll be happy with the
there's a
outcome.
reason why it's all green and full of lakes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um. Yeah. So the other part for me, so the one of the big pros for me about an agency is the fact that a lot of couples they really struggle to find a band or a musician, like any kind of musical act that they really like the sound of and is in budget. And sometimes I'll say to couples, like I'll give them homework and go, right, have a night where get your favourite tipple in, get some snacks, and like hit the internet hard.
Yeah.
Go down the rabbit hole, follow all the links, and see if there's anybody that really stands out. You know, I've got a list on my website of all the ones I work with. Sometimes they're like, you know what? Even doing that, I'm not really sure what we want.
Hmm.
Or, I don't know the vibe. Or I don't know what kind of budget I should put aside to this. There's a lot of unknowns. Whereas for me, pointing in the direction of an agency means that you go, right, have a chat with them, understand what the differences are, have a look at your budget, and realistically, what can you afford? Don't ask the question, we'd like that, how much is it? If you can go to an agency and go, right, what we're looking at is we need, I don't know, we'd love to have a I don't know, violin player for the ceremony, then we'd love to have something like acoustic and chilled for drinks reception, and then we want a band later on. And we're kind of into, I don't know, country style music. I don't know,
Yeah.
random.
Yeah.
We
Well,
can't we can't find those things. We can't find separately all these things to tick together. And I have no idea how much this could cost.
yeah.
And I'm like, right, the simplest way to plan a wedding is to have as few number of suppliers as possible. And if you can go, this is what I need, realistically my budget allows for this, what can you do?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Like,
oftentimes I think, you know, people don't, going back to the project management thing, people don't realize how much Wedman is involved, and if you've got to
oh yeah,
communicate with four different suppliers of music, that
yeah,
it can also generate potential, communication issues. If you've got
yeah,
one or two people that are on the same page and know what the crack is with timings, logistics, the vibe,
yeah,
it's managed, it's locked in,
yeah.
you
It's
know,
it's simple things like, you know, um, if they just want to play some music on a speaker in the background for the ceremony, but there isn't somebody who can confidently press play on their own playlist. You
yeah,
know, it's going right. Well, hold on, because if you get somebody in who can not just manage that bit, but will set up make sure that the singers or whoever sound great after that, and set up the band and make sure that sounds great later. It's like having your own sound engineer around, isn't it?
yeah. It's just making sure everything's seamless. I mean, I did a big wedding down in Bath just after COVID. Um, and the bride, she was really adamant about not having daytime music. And
Oh,
I'll hold my hand up and say, I actually forgot. I just put a playlist on of music. I've got this like 9 hour Spotify playlist that I sort of handpicked it, put it
yeah.
together over the years. And I put it on just out of, forgetting. I'll hold my hands up again. I know it was the wrong thing to do. I did forget. She came up to me and she said, "Oh, I'm really glad you put music on during the wedding breakfast because just having that something, an
Yeah.
atmosphere, like we alluded to before, is so important."
Yeah.
Um,
Atmosphere is absolutely vital. I preach it all the time. I think it's so underestimated how much music can affect the atmosphere and the mood
yeah,
of the day. And
it's not.
but the thing is, like you're saying with that seamless thing, if something goes wrong, if there's a like feedback on a microphone, oh
Mm,
my god, that's enough to shake everybody awake, isn't
yeah,
it? It interrupts every single conversation. It's the worst noise in the world. So having somebody who is just that is their priority is to keep just like saying about a playlist, it's having the right type of music for the right time of the day,
yeah,
and just giving the onus on somebody else. It's not a job that somebody else should be stressing about if that's not their thing.
yeah. I mean, you don't want the best man's groomsman, those kind of people having to sort of go off and deal with that stuff, really. If you can sort
Yeah,
of just delegate that to someone else, they can just you know,
yeah,
enjoy the day and concentrate on those speeches and all that.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
important.
I think
Um,
so too.
but yeah, I mean, what we do, I mean, just to talk about merchant music, I've gathered a lot of really good contacts over this
I've
last
seen on your
decade.
website those all those awesome people on there. My
Yeah,
God.
well, I pride myself on just trying to provide really good stuff, not anything that's so
Yeah.
are at all, because it's my name on it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
they're all people that I've clapped eyes on, heard with my own ears.
Yeah.
Wow, they're really good, who, look the part as well, oftentimes, I think, they're
Yeah.
doing a wedding on Saturday and the couple, they get married in Clitheroe and the wedding theme is it's a Viking wedding.
Of course it is.
The groom's got a big beard. Anyway, they honed in on this band before they'd even heard him because Tom, the singer, he's got a great big blonde beard. He looks like a Viking, so I'm sure they kind of picked him on the aesthetic value rather than being a great band, which they are. But yeah,
Yeah.
Tom's like this big 6 foot guy with a big beard.
Oh my God, will he wear the hat with the horns? That'd be
Yeah, I don't know. I
hilarious.
don't know. I don't know. I wasn't in the contract, must wear Viking garb.
See if he
Um,
can just come onto stage with that on, you know,
yeah,
just just to make them smile,
yeah.
just for
I'll,
that
I'll
little
try and
moment.
I'll try and get hold of a Viking helmet before Saturday. So,
Oh my God. That if you do that, I want a photo.
yeah, I
You've
will
got to
do.
send me a
I'll
picture.
WhatsApp you. I am DJing on that gig as well and sound engineering. So
Oh, there you go. You just need to
yeah,
sneak the helmet in.
yeah, yeah. I'll go find
Uh,
one.
but yeah, it does make a big difference. That kind of, if I think if you're a couple that you're adamant that you want a band for a wedding, it means you're that kind of couple, and therefore it's not just about the music that you're playing, but the entertainment factor too. It's
Yeah,
it's the full experience, isn't it? What are the personalities of these people? Do we want them to
yeah,
just be quite calm and demean? Their demeanor be a bit more less intrusive, or actually, do we want full integration in their faces? Let's get silly, you
yeah.
know.
It's a fine line, and everyone's tastes are different. You get, I mean, as a company, we get a lot of people that are like, we don't want any cheesy chat from the DJs. I think it's been a real. I remember
Not
that,
many
like,
people want that anymore.
oh, I just remember like, in the 90s, late 90s when I was a teenager, kind of being dragged along to wedding, like do weddings as I call them,
Yeah.
a bit like Peter Kay's sketch where he's talking about DJ chatting over the mic. You
Oh,
just
I've
don't
seen
know
it
what I'm
so
saying.
much. I'll be chatting to a DJ and it just normal voice like we are, and he'll turn to the microphone and be like, and like that would
Yeah,
what is that?
yeah, we don't do any of that anyway. But
Good.
what we do is, we can either be really super like with the DJ aspect, we can be super cool, just kind of, you know, in the background, just playing tunes,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
we can be interactive, but it's about, I don't know, just the right level of interaction, not
yeah.
not to dad DJ, not to offend any of the dad DJs out there.
They know
But
who they are, and that's their
yeah,
vibe, and that's totally fine.
yeah. And there's a bunch of
Yeah,
professionals, with the bands, especially and the DJs, it's about reading people and reading what
yeah,
they potentially want,
yeah,
and having
definitely.
that conversation before
Yeah,
you even turn up at the event and going, well, what do you want? Do you want, you know, maximum interaction and having a laugh down the mic, or do you want it just to be this like super cool, almost,
chilled version.
yeah, like a Radio 1 live lounge or
Yeah,
proper gig,
yeah.
like
Which, when you're picking without an agent, you see, it means you have to do all of that kind of delving deep yourself and really
yeah,
understand what the options are, which
yeah,
is so widespread. There's so many options that then, like I say, that night of homework with delving deep gets a bit spirally, gets a
yeah,
bit kind of overwhelming with how much choice there is out there. And
yeah.
that's not even starting to ask them about their prices,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know.
even with the agency thing, I mean, a lot of agents have just reams and reams and reams of options.
Yeah,
If you consider some of the really big agents, they have, I mean, if you kind of put in Cumbria on Entertainment Nation, for example, one of
yeah,
the big ones, they've just got
yeah,
reams and reams. But, obviously bands in London will travel up to Cumbria or Scotland, if the
yeah,
price is right kind of thing. So it's like how wide do you want to go?
yeah,
With someone like me, I guess I'd refer to what I do as a bit more boutique.
yeah,
You've got, a friendly face or, at the end of someone at the end of the phone to go, this is what I
yeah.
think. I know people like,
But
that
the
the
good,
band
but
I'm Go on, sorry.
it's the budget side of things as well, though, isn't it? Because they can come to you and go, look, realistically, this is the money we have for the entire entertainment part of it.
Yeah.
Can you do something that will fit?
Yeah. I mean, I'd sooner have a conversation about quality. So rather than sort of, if they came to me and said, oh, we want a five-piece band, we're set on a five-piece band and it costs, we want to pay X. Um, you
Yeah,
know, if they wanted to pay 500 quid for a band, I'd be like, well, that's not realistic. I can't deliver something that's quality for that.
no,
I would steer them more towards a duo or trio or something like that,
yeah, yeah. But at
I
least
mean,
they can have the conversation rather than just using a search filter
yeah, exactly.
on
Yeah,
Google or something.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good.
Um,
You know, what I'm always intrigued about from an agency side of things as well is how much is it beneficial to the band? So, like you were saying before, what's good for them is if you've booked a five-piece band and they're coming up from London and it's costing you a mint, but actually something happens to one of those members of the band,
mhm.
a lot of the time they're going to struggle, especially when it's a distance, to fill in that gap.
Mm.
Whereas I suppose with an agency, you've got a bit more reassurance behind you. Would you say
Yeah,
that's right?
yeah, it's contacts as well. I mean, a lot of the musicians I work with are all sort of Manchester based, drawn
Yeah,
from like Royal Northern College, Salford University, some of the best sort of, musicians in the Northwest, really, in the
yeah,
country. The musicians that we work with have worked with the likes of people like Paul Weller, the Human League, the 80s band,
yeah,
Dermot Kennedy, people,
yeah,
big stage performers.
yeah,
And as a community of people, we often work together and,
yeah.
play together in different guises.
I think that's a bit that lots of people don't get with bands. They don't
Yeah,
understand that actually, yes, they do want to be a set unit. That would be great, but it doesn't work like that.
no,
Some
no, and
people are a bit
it
shocked
can
when
work.
they see a photo online. They're like, hold on a
Yeah,
minute, your bass
yeah,
player looks different. And like, yeah, but
yeah,
that's like, that is normal.
yeah, yeah. It is normal, and if you watch someone like Sting, for example, turns up at every other gig with probably a different drummer, and at this
Yeah.
level of musicianship I'm talking about, you can just slot in,
As
and
long as they know their stuff.
yeah, exactly. And in the industry, it's called a dep, someone who's deputizing
I
for
didn't
a
know that.
player. Yeah. But yeah, it's
Eh,
commonplace. I guess people do get a bit freaked out by that, but I understand why they get freaked out, but they're not musicians. They don't think like musicians, it's
yeah,
I had it the other day, like I've got a lady who wants to book sax and her husband, she's all about DJ sax,
yeah,
the Balearic kind of vibe, and he's much more, he wants kind of like stuff like Madness, earlier on in the night, which is
yeah,
cool. And she sort of asked for like a rep list. And I've gone back to the sax player and said, do you have a rep list? He's like, well, no, but I can play anything you want, And this is a guy
yeah,
who went to Royal Northern College of Music, got a first, like really
yeah,
amazing sax player. But yeah, I guess it's a
yeah,
fine line. Some people, if they don't know loads of music, they kind of want something in front of them, like a document to sort of go, oh yeah, I love that tune. They want that kind of bit of
yeah, yeah,
inspiration. So it's kind of my job to interface between the client and the musician and go, well,
yeah,
here's some suggestions of things he could play.
yeah.
Um,
It's an interesting process. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
I'm all for it. It's
yeah,
great. What
yeah.
do you,
I really love having those conversations, because it's hand holding people through the process and
well, and it's
uh,
fascinating. When I talk to couples about their type of music, and there'll be complete clashes between the two, and you're
yeah,
going, oh,
yeah,
okay, I don't. So maybe your style music for earlier on, but yours is
yeah,
definitely later. Like,
yeah. I love just throwing the floor to the couple and going, what do you like? And just hearing the kind of chatter and the bickering of like, oh, well, we're not having that at our wedding.
yeah,
You
I
know,
always hear the constant one I always hear is, "I'm not having bloody ABBA. We're not
yeah,
having it on." I'm
yeah,
like, oh god, I remember when that was all the rage.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
I often I say to people, it's good to have these little details. I mean, things that people wouldn't necessarily think about.
Yeah.
What are the last three songs of the night? It's, invariably
Yeah.
playing the last three songs because what the DJ might think is a great choice of song, they might hate, they might,
Yeah.
you know, uh,
Yeah.
so, bolting all that stuff down beforehand, I think is super important.
Yeah. Definitely.
Whoever's playing the music at the end of the night knows exactly that, the tunes are going to resonate, you know,
Yeah.
with family and friends.
How
Um,
funny. Yeah. Yeah. And I've had it randomly mentioned like, we're not ending the night on the Killers or Take
yeah,
That.
yeah, Mr. Brightside is definitely one of those kind of not in vogue or really in vogue still,
Yeah.
I went to see them at so when Hot Fuzz came out, the album that Mr.
Yeah.
Brightside is,
Yeah.
I saw them perform that live at Glastonbury. It was,
I was there too.
oh really?
I
Wow.
saw when it was the soggy year.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
which year wasn't it? I went
Uh,
to see it later, and that really was in 2007. That was super,
yeah,
super.
I think that's when I went too. And
Yeah.
when the Killers played, I was up on the hill, and I actually got so stuck in mud that when I tried to step out, my welly disappeared.
Oh God. Yeah,
Yeah.
I taped my shoes to my feet with gaffer tape for the entire weekend. Ended up with trench foot.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole
Right.
different podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. The trench foot
Oh,
walk.
how interesting. Yeah, it was good then. It was there. That was really good.
Yeah.
Another thing that we discussed about briefly was the fact that there's some concerns that people have to really think about, and it could be down to the venue. So we have both experienced this, where especially, you know, my local area is the Lake District. There's a lot of rules and regulations about sound around the Lake
Yeah.
District. If you've got neighbours next to your venue, you can guarantee that that venue has got something where they have to abide to some rules. So this is something I think needs to be pointed out a lot more. And a lot of bands do it now. I think they will. One of the first questions they'll say is, "Does your venue have a sound limiter?"
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's yeah. I mean, we alluded to it earlier. It's a question of transparency on the venue's part,
Yeah.
because again, it's that thing of you've not done this before. What is a sound limiter? What does it mean in real world application to me as a light person? If you're a customer or
Yeah.
a bride and groom, and
Yeah.
yeah, just sort of, you know, venues just
Investigate.
yeah, just explaining what it means. What is a sound limiter? What will that mean if we've got a band playing? What does that mean? Does it
Mm,
mean that the band are going to have to play quiet? What does it mean? So yeah, I mean, just to explain what a sound limiter is, it's basically a device that has a microphone that's situated in the venue. Um, if the noise level in a room or an event space goes above a certain volume in
yeah.
decibel terms, that's linked to the mains power. It actually cuts the power off. So usually what they have in venues is the mic linked up to like a visual LED display. It'll kind of go green, amber, red. And if the band are kind of going into the red constantly, that's the band's cue to sort of quieten down.
Now everybody whisper.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you kind of, I don't know, if you go in the red for like over a minute, it just cuts the power off, which, as you can imagine,
Oh my god. That's
for the
so
for the
stressful.
yeah, for the wedding party, it's just like a vibe killer,
I mean, it's
massive.
memorable. I don't think it's
Yeah,
memorable
yeah.
in all the best ways, but it's.
I will never forget playing a first dance, relatively quiet and the sound
No.
limiter going off, sorry, and the power cutting out. And I was just like, oh my goodness, how are we going to manage this? Anyway, the manager of the venue sort of made the decision to basically run an extension into the event space from the kitchen, and we, kind of plugged into that and carried on the gig, and
Oh my
we played at a
god.
sensible volume, and everyone was happy, and we all kind of laughed about it. But yeah,
Ugh.
but it's an important thing to know for any performer before they
Yeah.
arrive, because it,
Yeah.
it can affect what equipment is brought. So for example, a band will have a PA that often has two bass bins, which are like the larger bass speakers, and then two tops.
Yeah.
Um, but you can do a performance with two smaller speakers, um,
Yeah.
So rather than the band setting up this bigger system, bigger PA system, it's like, oh, they've got a sound limiter, we'll use like a smaller rig. We'll
Yeah.
notch out some of the
Yeah, because
offending bass frequencies in the mixer, that kind of thing. There are steps that you can do to
it's
manage
just
it.
something that you need to know ahead of time. Because I know
It
there's
is,
a
yeah.
few bands out there as well who they refuse to play if there's one involved.
Yeah, and I can understand that. It can really affect the performance. If it's set a really kind of ridiculously low decibel rating,
Yeah.
so somewhere in the region of like,
A
I don't know,
Hoover.
86 dB. Yeah, it can be a real buzzkill, and that can affect your performance. You can't
Yeah.
dig in and like play at a sensible volume. And your job is
Yeah.
to make people dance and then entertain people, and you can't
You
do
feel
it.
like you're playing lift music
Yeah,
rather
you
than.
feel like you're playing, to your dog in the living room, that kind of volume. Um, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
I think the important thing is it's a communication thing. If the
Yeah.
bands and artists know beforehand, they can take steps to kind of to manage it
Yeah.
appropriately.
Yeah.
Or, and that can include, I'm really sorry, but we're not going to come and play at your venue because
We just can't work like that.
we can't work. We
Or
can't work under these
what you've heard of us play has been in a place where that hasn't been a problem. Therefore, you're going to hear us play at your wedding. It's going to sound different. And
Yeah,
we are not here to disappoint,
yeah.
you know. And
As
it was,
professionals, we're here to manage expectation,
yeah,
and that's really, really important.
yeah,
Particularly, yeah, like you said, in the sort of word of mouth economy where
yeah,
we've done weddings. I did one wedding at Askham Hall, and we got 6 bookings over the years, like which went the length and breadth of Britain, in terms
yeah,
of like recommendation.
yeah. So it
Um,
makes a big difference for a band. They don't want to come
yeah,
out there and sound pants.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Which
I
is
get
just
it.
not. I get that it's not a concern that, well, not something that anyone would normally even think about, but it
Yeah.
is really important. Um,
Well,
so
thank
yeah,
you, because I don't think I think I remember hearing about sound limiters back in the day, and then I didn't really clock on to actually how impactful that would be. I didn't realise it cut out the power. So,
mm.
oh
Well, it can have
God,
implications for your gear as well, for equipment.
yeah, yeah,
Being Imagine
yeah,
just put a plug on like a really sensitive, I don't know, like can't think of an
yeah,
electrical item, but something that's got
yeah.
sensitivity. You don't want to just pull the plug on it.
No,
So
well, that's
yeah,
fab. So now, hopefully, we understand a bit more about how an agency works and the best way of utilising that service, the options that are out there, and some things to properly consider as well.
yeah. There's a lot to it. I mean, yeah, I'd like to think what I do, adds value, takes stress away rather than adding stress. People
Yeah.
think, oh, big bad agent, they're just out for the money, but that's not how I run my business. I really like to, you know,
It's full service. It's not just
yeah,
standing up there and away you go. It's
yeah,
no, let's talk about this before this actually
yeah,
happens.
yeah, yeah. Let's make it as good as it can be, and here are the
Yeah.
here are the tools to do it. What do you think? Let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Nick. As usual, it's a pleasure to chat to you.
Hugh, always good
Um,
to see your face.
we'll put a link down with, how to find you, everything we've talked about. And yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah,
Yay!
really good to see you. And yeah, thank you for having me. And if people see this and want to pick up the phone and have a conversation, just please
Yeah.
do so. You know,
Yeah. Here to
I'm not.
help.
I'm here to help. Yeah, I'm not just here to kind of run a business. I just like chatting to people. So
Me too.
yeah, just pick
Thank
up the
you.
phone. Yeah, right.
Okay, bye.
Thanks very much indeed.
If you would like some further advice or help, or more information on Weddings by Annabelle, or would like to be involved in the podcast, then email us via the website weddingsbyannabelle.co.uk or find us on Instagram, Facebook or LinkedIn. Okay, bye.